Good afternoon. We're excited to host another wonderful guest for Let's Talk African American Gardens, a special part of Smithsonian Gardens Let's Talk Gardens. We've had one speaker. You are going to love the second speaker. We're excited to hear the connection she's making with a beloved book and a remake of a beloved movie. But my name is Cindy Brown. I am the manager of collections, education, and access at Smithsonian Gardens, and I am pleased to be joined with Carla Thomas McGinnis from the National Museum of African American History and Culture, who is our collaborators this year for doing this terrific series of programs. As always, we ask you to put your questions in the chat box, and Carla and I will, at the end of the presentation, ask the questions to our speaker. And I hope you're all buckled in because this is going to be terrific. So Carla, please introduce the speaker.
Yes. Oh, we are so excited to be here again to celebrate the handbook of the Negro Garden Club of Virginia. I've got my other book next to me, The Color Purple. But we are here. We are joined by Cola B. Talkin, a visionary leader skillfully combining her passion for planting with her creativity and charisma on the mic. She's the mastermind behind the Black in the Garden podcast and founder of Underground Arborist. She's on a mission to diversify plant-related industries as she amplifies the green aspect of Black culture. In its first years, the podcast gained top ratings and a global audience, connecting with influential guests and fostering inclusivity. Cola's wit and insights make horticulture accessible, while her role as a mother and a former trucker enriches her unique perspective. She embraces her calling as the planeteer Captain Planet raised her to be, blooming with purpose and making powerful impact. Cola is a sought-after speaker and an ambassador for environmental stewardship through her nonprofit, and she is here with us today. Thank you so much. Welcome, Cola B. Talkin.
Yes, welcome, Cola. We are so excited to have you. And we want you to jump right in to the presentation so as you have as much time as you possibly can. And we'll disappear, but we're here. We're here, and and I know you're going to ask the audience some questions, and please, audience, put your answers in the chat box, and then we'll take turns reading them to Cola and having her, or telling her what your responses are. So that sound good?
That sounds great. So also important to note that I am going to be kind of sprinkling in a few like trivia style questions throughout, not too many. Just want to make sure y'all are paying attention and that y'all are familiar with the subject matter. So appreciate you all for, being prepared and being good sports. We will do a little bit of crowdsourcing at the end. So yeah, that's a crowdsourcing of a particular question that I have. But yeah, we'll get to all of that. So I am just thrilled to be here. I want to thank y'all once again for inviting me to present for let me see if I can say this, y'all. Let's Talk African American Gardens, presented by Smithsonian Gardens in partnership with, and I'm going to say the whole thing, the National Museum of African American History and Culture.
You got
Somebody clap for me now.
All right, I'm going to disappear. We'll be back. Okay, you'll hear from us. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, so let me go ahead and cue up the presentation. I hope that everybody is having a great day. I am Cola B. Talkin, the hostess with the mostest of the Black in the Garden podcast, and I know everything is as it should be. Oh, there we go. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was on the right screen just to get us started here. So, yes, I'm going to get into my introduction for myself, but first and foremost, let's get the visuals, okay? Sharing a screen. Share the screen. Share that thing. Presents. We are presenting. All right, let's get into the things. So, the subject matter that we are here to explore and celebrate is Miss Celie's garden, the botany of the color purple. So just a technical question right quick before we go all the way in. I can see the little sidebar with my face. That's not on the screen, right? You're just seeing me sharing my whole thing. Cynthia, Carla, y'all just confirm that for me.
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
You're good.
So Miss Celie's garden and the botany of the color purple is the vibe today. I know my Wi-Fi is good, but I feel like I am freezing up a little bit. Am I good?
You are good.
Good.
You are great.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just keep going.
Yep.
All right, well, your host of this prestigious and exciting webinar that we're getting into today is me, myself, Celie Talkin, aka your favorite soil cousin. And I want to just take a moment.
Now you're not okay. We've lost your audio.
Oh.
I would say just go ahead and get closer to the computer.
Closer to the computer.
We hear you now. We hear you now.
Okay,
Yeah, it was a little bit choppy on my side, so.
Okay, yeah. We're good.
All right, just resetting. All right, cool. All right, so yes, I am your favorite soil cousin, and this is an important part, so I'm glad that y'all made sure that the sound is good. I call my supporters and people who I'm in kinship with, my soil cousins, to be as inclusive as possible, because I know that we are all identifying in our own fabulous and unique ways. And I definitely observe that and want to be inclusive of that. And I always say that it's the soil that connects us anyway. So that is why we are soil cousins in that kinship. And I'm your favorite, obviously. And so you may have seen or heard about me in some of these places. These are the places that Celie be talking to. Not everybody gets it when I say it. It's Celie be talking. That is an indication of the fact that I talk. You know, the B is a verb. It doesn't stand for beautiful or Beatrice or anything like that. It's a verb. All right, so get into it. And so I want to talk a little bit about, before I go to the next slide, I'm just trying to stay on track here. I want to talk a little bit about how I got here in the first place. It's being enthusiastic about plants. I started about 2017, and they've had me in a chokehold ever since. Gardening, whether it be indoors, outdoors, house plants, whatever plants I can get my hands on, seeds, all of that good stuff. And it's gotten to the point of obsession where maybe I need a little bit of help. I see plants everywhere. And if it wasn't for me, not just seeing plants everywhere, but really being interested in noticing plants everywhere, there's this concept of plant awareness versus, we don't call it plant blindness anymore because that is not the most politically correct way to talk about it. But plant awareness is something that I do specialize in. And so in noticing plants everywhere, especially where Black people are concerned, especially as we're getting into the topics that we're getting into, is one of the many reasons why I started the Black in the Garden podcast 4 years ago. And I am low-key modest, but I guess this is the part of the program where I'm required to brag. You see some of the people that I've been talking to on here, but I'll just say that on the Black in the Garden podcast, I've interviewed some amazing people, some scientists from all kind of ranging fields of study, botany, of course, ecology, chemistry, and things of that nature. Black in the Garden, fun fact, even has a resident botanist. And I have also connected with authors, influencers, maybe a couple celebrities. And Black in the Garden, just in the first year of coming out, has reached the Apple Podcast charts in the home and gardening category, of course. And yeah, all of that within the first year. And as you can see, some of the places that Black in the Garden has been featured as a result of really just hitting the scene and filling a void that was in the horticultural communications or podcast or whatever you want to call it space that was really not being filled, and addressing an audience that was not otherwise being addressed, and doing so enthusiastically and with a little bit of, you know, flyness and swag, if I do say so myself. So we also, on Apple Podcasts, have been featured for the last 2 years running in their Black History Month, their Best of Black History Month collection. And you can see here, Essence and BET have counted Black in the Garden among their faves. And among the many distinctions that have come about, most recently, I'm proud to say that I've spoken at TEDx Jacksonville. She done TED Talked, y'all. She done talked to TED. And I was honored as a cultivator of celebration by the esteemed Cornell Botanic Gardens just a couple months ago. So I guess by now it is safe to say that I am too legit to quit. All right. So y'all stick with me. I'm done bragging now. Let's get into the things. So with my platform and my voice, I truly aspire to leave a legacy of connecting my melanated community with nature through the cultivation of plants. And in just a moment, we're going to get into the profound importance of this connection, which is a sentiment that is so impactful, that connection with nature being so impactful that it inspired Alice Walker to pen the iconic novel that we are celebrating on today. So let's get into setting the scene. Alice Walker's early inspiration for the color purple. All right. So where do I begin? We know that there, obviously, with us getting into the botany of the color purple, there are botanical themes and motifs that have emerged as very powerful symbols, mirroring the characters' emotional journeys. And the novel vividly depicts lush landscapes and vibrant blooms and the transformative magic of gardening, while the original film visually showcases multiple gardens. And Walker's emphasis on these botanical elements finds its roots in revelatory moments that she shared. And she goes back as early to the age of 11, where in the, is it preface or preface? I do this all the time on the podcast. I know words, but sometimes I might say them a little bit different than you. But in the preface of a later version of her acclaimed novel, Alice Walker specified that she identified as a worshiper of nature since the age of 11. And she recalled finding herself drawn to trees that were outside of the window of the church that she begrudgingly attended. Now, I know that none of y'all saints in the room with me know anything about begrudging church attendance, but we will press on. And feeling the way that she did in the environment that she was forced to be in, and looking out the window and really connecting with the trees outside, her thinking evolved to finding spiritual solace in nature and holding it as supremely divine. And this deep-rooted connection adds profound layers to the botanical themes woven throughout the narrative. And when I tell y'all that Alice Walker really, really is connected with nature in such a way and emphasizes the divinity of it so much so that that connection really has a lot to do with why the novel exists in the first place. But we will talk a little bit more about that as the presentation goes on. Ooh, we got a trivia question. Y'all get your typing fingers ready in the chat. Which character said the titular line in the novel? I was very keen on using the word titular, by the way. And I know I'm saying that right. It feels good to say that. So let's get into the chat. And before I go on to the next slide to indicate what the actual answer is, any guesses?
We got a couple guesses. Yep, they're coming in. KJ.
And I can give you a clue.
KJ Jack has a guess. Suge and was the first. KJ was the first. Delilah says Suge. Yeah, we got a lot of Suge votes coming in.
Okay, we got a smart audience on today. Y'all. Yes. Suge Avery.
I love the answers.
Deandra has the full quote. I think it pisses God off to pass by the color purple and not notice it.
Y'all are getting ahead of me now.
Uh-oh. Okay.
That's the audience. They're getting ahead of you.
Okay, well, see, I told y'all were getting ahead of me, but y'all know what I was going to say next, because if you're anything like me, especially if you're a millennial like me, then you very likely know most, if not all, of the lines in the movie. You probably joke with your friends in the group chat about how it's gonna rain on your head and all of that. Y'all, it was so hard to pull this together because there was stuff that I had to leave out that I really wanted to keep in here, but it didn't have nothing to do with plants. So we will proceed with Suge having uttered, "I think it pisses God off if you walk by the color purple in a field somewhere and don't notice it." Now, we heard her say that in the original film. Now, just in case I did forget to mention this at the top, we're not talking about the new film. I don't know nothing about that. I'm still waiting for Oprah to text me back about the premiere. I think it happened the other day. So we'll talk more about that towards the end, about, you know, what's the plan for how we're going to get into the new film. Obviously, that's going to be after this webinar. But for the sake of the original film, this is what she said, but it was also in a greater context that we are going to just unpack a little bit more as we go forward. So we're setting the scene, the botanical themes in the color purple. All right, so let's get back to Alice Walker and her, I guess we could say, the origin story of the color purple, where she indicated in 2006, she confessed that when she began thinking about writing the novel that would become The Color Purple, she felt the greatest need to do so surrounded by nature. And living in New York City, I know some of y'all are joining us from New York City, so you understand that she felt the call to go and be surrounded by nature, as I can imagine that this book was inside of her. And any creatives, especially authors, I'm sure y'all can understand the sentiment of feeling like you have something that you need to release into the world that you are kind of pregnant with. I felt that way about Black in the Garden for a year before I even put it out. And after many changes, she divorced and selling her house and leaving her fancy job at a magazine rather. And I can relate to those things as well. Life be lifing. But she was seeking guidance and spent days at the river among redwoods and spent nights looking at the stars. And that experience of heaven, or that was the experience of heaven and nature that she had so missed while being in that big rich town that we know as New York. And the ever-present magical call, wait a minute, let me make sure. Okay, the ever-present magical call to which her soul, and I think I misspelled that, my bad, y'all, and her creativity aspired. So that's that pull to nature definitely not only is a part of the origin story of the novel, and her just needing to be surrounded by nature and trees, but it also is very much influential in the language that is used there, and also, of course, the botanical aspects of. Oh, my bad, John. We're gonna keep going. We just keep on going because won't always get it perfect, but I'm enjoying myself, and I hope that y'all are as well. An overview of the botanical motifs in the novel and the original film. So Alice Walker's thoughtfully eloquent descriptions not only offer a visual feast for the imagination, but also vividly depict the character's emotional experience. The original film's imagery, which I'm sure so many of us are very fond of, and the stellar performances from our legends, Danny Glover, Oprah Winfrey, of course. I thought that I said Whoopi Goldberg when I said Oprah Winfrey. My brain just did a weird thing. But our legends were depicting the characters in a way that really lives in our collective consciousness. And don't forget the set design, because without the set design and the careful curation of the landscapes that they shot in, we would not have the glimpse into what the botanical world of the color purple looked like outside of our imaginations. So that provided a shared visual language for readers and viewers alike. And the collective perception becomes a crucial part of the novel's enduring impact, resonating across generations and about to cross some more generations with the new film. The botanical observations and motifs described in the novel find a visually cohesive representation in the original film's landscapes, which foster a standardized perception among viewers, as exemplified by the drone view. And apologies, you all, I was having trouble getting my video in order for this. It just wasn't given what it was supposed to give. So you'll just have to take my word for it and go off of your memory. But the drone view of Celie's gardens, if you remember, if you know, you know, she had multiple gardens. There was right in front as she came off the steps, there was a sunflower garden. On both sides of the house, there were gardens. If you remember the scene where, from the original film, where Mr.'s dad came through and he was walking up to the porch, he walked straight through one side of the house where there was a garden. And on the other side of the house, if you recall the scene where Nettie and Celie had to part, unfortunately. You know, they said they was never gonna part, but Mr. said not on that day. But in the backdrop of that scene, there was another garden that was on the other side of that house. And so the shared perception has become an integral part of the work's enduring legacy. And that's in reference to the images that are in the film, the original film. Just always need to make sure I'm emphasizing that, because Oprah didn't text me back for the new one yet. So let's get into the botany and the emotional depth in the narrative. And Miss Celie was growing. As we immerse ourselves in Celie's world, we witness her evolution from a subdued and oppressed young girl who was not only molested, and apologies, I did mean to give a trigger warning at the top. I'm not really gonna get into that terminology too much, but those who are aware of this work are aware of the fact that there was, unfortunately, and once again, trigger warning, there was rape, there was molestation, and all other forms of very inappropriate nastiness that were going on in the novel as well as the film. But unfortunately, with with the struggle that we know that Celie experienced, that was something that those were the circumstances that she endured, which ultimately set her up to have something to grow through and grow towards in her evolution as she became a resilient and self-discovered woman, who was able to find her own sense of agency, because as we know, with her being a very young mother, not by choice, not by any means, she was stripped of her agency and she was just basically sold off to Mr. and, you know, had to do his bidding and this and that, or not do his bidding rather, but, you know, basically be his domestic. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say slave, but she endured, and her resilience definitely shone through. And the botanical elements serve as metaphors for her personal growth, as we see, especially in the film, the way that they are depicted. And Celie's gardens, for sure, symbolized not only growth, healing, and rebirth, but also mirrors Celie's evolving self-esteem and her newfound independence. And at some points in the novel, she indicated, while she was having a conversation, that she would rather be out in the fields or fooling with the animals or even chopping wood. And in the novel, Celie's appreciation for the beauty of nature becomes intertwined with her own yearning for beauty and self-discovery. And the seasonal changes, like the flowering trees and those delicate purple, iconic blooms, all become vessels for expressing the emotional depth of the characters. Now let's get into some symbolism and some quotes. I know I don't even need to put this up here because everybody in this webinar knows all the words to the movie. And so, the film captures the moments, the botanical moments visually, which give life to the emotional undercurrents of the novel. And as we watch Celie and others engage with the natural world, we witness a profound connection between their emotional states and the botanical elements that surround them. There was just so much that was happening in the film where, you know, there was like those critical pivotal scenes. I remember when they were coming through the corn, when Miss Sophia was coming through that cornfield, she was swiping them stalks out of the way because she had to come and confront Miss Celie about telling Harpo to beat her. So just moments like that physical engagement with that agricultural environment really spoke to the urgency of what she was feeling. Like she was getting over there. I'm surprised she didn't put hands on that lady, but you never know. Maybe we'll see something like that in the upcoming film. Now let's get into some more trivia. Y'all type your fingers ready. Who said this? But one day when I was sitting quiet, it come to me, that feeling of being part of everything, not separate at all. I knew that if I cut a tree, my arm would bleed. KJ, you know this one? I remember one of y'all indicated that was someone who, that was a name. I'm not sure if it's the KJ that I think it is, but Suge had came up as the person who said that. What's the chat giving? I can't see it.
You might have stumped them this time.
Deandra stumped. Devin guesses Celie. This one? Okay, we get another Celie guess from Erica. Okay, KJ says, I can't think of this one, and I just watched the movie a couple of months ago.
That would be me.
Eddie?
It's not in the movie. It's from the novel. We're jumping back and forth. We're going from the novel
we're
to
in
the
the
movie.
book. We're in
a lot
the
of
book.
material.
All right, Keandra and
So,
Lori are guessing Nettie.
Yeah. Yeah.
so who has been guessed so far? Celie, Nettie.
Celie and Nettie.
And
I love
Nettie,
how
Nettie,
nobody guessed
Nettie.
like any of the male characters. That's shade to me. I'm gonna keep going.
wow.
It was Shug. It was Shug. Yes. Let me trying to keep up with my notes here. She was very deeply connected with nature, and I feel like Alice Walker kind of spoke through Shug in many ways, especially when she was indicating what Celie, how Shug, and those conversations that Shug was having, you know, very candidly with Celie when they were just, you know, walking about or out in the field. She would be saying things about, you know, what God is and divinity and things like that. So, kind of in a similar vein was how that came up in the conversation, which this part was in the novel. You know, everything didn't make it to the book. I mean, let me say that. I said it in reverse. That was in the novel. Everything didn't make it to the film. But, you know, it's just got me that much more excited to see the new film because I'm wondering what ways they will be incorporating perhaps some other elements from the novel that were not included in the original film. All right, so we've gotten our trivia moment, and we're going to continue on as we're getting into, you know, more of those bars that Shug had for Celie, and just, you know, that reflection that she had about, excuse me, about nature. So we talked a little bit about this quote in the beginning when we were getting into the trivia and discussing how it was, you know, the titular line. It was leading up to the titular line, rather. And we could definitely say that Shug Avery was a spiritual mentor for Celie, and she delivered a casual and unassuming sermon that was leading up to this line. And as we reflect on this powerful statement demonstrating the connection between nature and spirituality in the novel, there's a very strong connection there. The idea that God finds joy in our admiration of the color purple challenges us to appreciate the beauty around us. And it is a profound reminder of the divine in nature. Now, who said this? Let me give the disclaimer before I say anything else, because I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want Smithsonian or the nice people down to the National Museum of African American History and Culture or myself to be implicated in nobody's wrongdoings. This webinar is intended for educational and fictional analysis purposes only. It does not endorse or condone the use of illegal substances, and neither the organizers nor any affiliated institutions advocate or support such activities. But since we're getting into the botany, y'all know who was out there enjoying the devil's lettuce? Who said, I smoke when I want to talk to God? I smoke when I want to make love. Lately, I feel like me and God make love just fine anyhow, whether I smoke reefer or not. I just love that term reefer. It lets you know the generation right offhand. So what's the chat saying? Who said that?
Keandra says Celie, although this does sound like Celie when she said when Celie and her were talking about sex. Ruby guesses Sophia. Pelinda's guess is Sophia. We got a guess for Shug from Norel. Now there's a couple more Sophias coming in.
Yeah.
So what's the consensus? Is it Sophia?
I would think Sophia for just by population of a nomination.
Yeah. There's a strong contingency for Shug though. So
yeah, that's true.
I just sipped that water for her. suspense. So it was Miss Celie. Celie, you know, let's unpack this. This is another aspect or another part from earlier in the novel where she was talking about it, because it was kind of like a whole page. Something make you feel good, I say. Something make you see visions. Something make your love come down. But if you smoke it too much, it make you feeble-minded, confused, always need to clutch hold of somebody. And she went on to say, Grady grow it in the backyard. Now, I don't know who Grady is, but would love to meet him. But we didn't see any of that in the novel, obviously. I feel like, you know, those of us who are very familiar with I mixed up my words again. We didn't see that in the film, sorry. But that definitely came up in the novel. I'm super curious about why they didn't at least kind of like allude to it a little bit more in that visual representation of the film. But I felt very seen when I found out when I had to revisit the novel, and I came across this particularly interesting botanical tidbit from the original novel, right? So just delving into this, I guess some would say controversial quote, it unveils a nuanced exploration of the herbal escape from Celie's experience with trauma and oppression. And the mention of something that make you feel good suggests a coping mechanism, possibly a form of herbal remedy through which Celie finds solace and relief. And the reference to seeing visions and feeling love coming down implies a connection with joy and with sensuality that might be absent from Celie's everyday life. And I just have to say that if anybody deserved a botanical escape, Miss Celie did. Okay, she went through it, and shout out to Grady for growing reefer in the backyard. That wasn't part of Miss Celie's garden, but I feel like low key she might have had a little something around the back. Let's get into the plants. Just the beauty of it all. That's what we're here for. That's what y'all came here for, right? The plants and the color purple. They contribute literal and symbolic dimensions to the narrative, serving as metaphors for personal growth and resilience. I'm just gonna let y'all take that in so I can make sure I'm on track with where I'm supposed to be. Their life cycle and beauty parallel the characters' transformations, providing a tangible representation of their journeys. And this botanical symbolism creates a poignant contrast with the lack of beauty that Miss Celie felt, deepening the emotional resonance of the novel. We know that that was unfortunately a part of Miss Celie's struggle, her journey, was, you know, being told from a very young age. I remember in the opening scene, her stepdad, because that wasn't her real dad, called her ugly, like straight up to her face, and just so mean, you know. But being a young girl and receiving that kind of messaging will absolutely not make you feel like you're beautiful or you're worthy, and it'll really affect you for the rest of your life and your self-esteem and your confidence. And that definitely was something that influenced Miss Celie's desire to connect with plants in the way that she did. And I forgot to mention the part about her porch garden, where I know I clocked some geraniums in the film. My favorite plant, the coleus, was out there on the porch. I remember when Mr.'s dad came over and she spit in his water, deservedly, he was sitting in front of a coleus plant that was in like this big white basket. And yeah, he wasn't no good, you know, but everybody calling her ugly, or not everybody, but the men in her life who would have been better to nurture her in some kind of way, but were abusing her in all those other ways, certainly made it so that she would be seeking beauty in all of those gorgeous plants that she cultivated, not just when she was at Mr.'s house, but she also, when her stepfather died, and she was endowed with the land and the home that she moved into, which we didn't really see much of it. But at the end of the film, we saw her porch was packed out with plants. Like that looked like how my porch has looked at some point in time. And so she definitely had so many flowers. And don't forget that beautiful patch of sunflowers that was a part of a very beautiful scene in the movie. So she was all about that flower life for that reason, unfortunately. Now, speaking of flowers, what you know? Name the flower in this scene. I should have got the Jeopardy music. Okay, what's the chat saying? Because what we're gonna do now, remember I told y'all we were gonna crowdsource?
Yep.
I got tired of arguing with people on my Instagram stories and botanists and wannabe botanists and all of that, trying to tell me what this flower is. So maybe today we can settle it once and for all by just crowdsourcing the name of this flower. Because if you would have asked me what the name of it was, IDK.
We got a lot of votes for Cosmos.
Okay.
Yes.
There's one that just came in, Aster, question.
But
Also,
the majority
we're at,
definitely is Cosmos.
we got 18 minutes. Just a time check.
Well, we're doing good. Okay, pace is going well. That's good to know. All right, so
Somebody says maybe Poppy, but a lot of Cosmos.
A lot of Cosmos. We're really just
Cosmos
at the end. Y'all can vote all the way up to the end. Somebody count for me, okay? Somebody be the counter in the comments.
Okay, people are pretty confident about this.
I feel like visually Cosmos is winning from the way that y'all are describing that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's good to know that y'all know. I knew my plant people was gonna find me in here, so I'm putting my trust in y'all today, because you know, being the host of a webinar, especially in conjunction with the illustrious Smithsonian Gardens and the National Museum of African American History and Culture, means that some may view me as an authority. I listed a lot of accolades and things at the beginning, and I've been some places and I've planted some things, but I don't know everything. And I'm not the kind of academic, scholar, host, professional, horticultural communicator. I'm not that kind of girl who is going to sit up here and try to act like I know all of it. But how fun for us to be able to come together in observation and celebration of what we all know about this movie, to crowdsource and figure out what that plant is. Because y'all know I was scouring and searching for the people that could give me that answer, and I just unfortunately was not able to get them. My attempts to reach the botanical team for the movie, they could not be reached for comment. So we're going to take a tally about that and declare it before we close.
Well, Zach took a tally, and he's saying, yeah. So Cosmos is the highest with 19, Poppy, Aster, and I just lost it, Anemone for 1. And I recognize some of the names in the chat who are horticulturists, and they are convinced it's Cosmos. So, and I am convinced it's cosmos. So
Can
I
you go
would say
back to
if
the
that was your
picture?
answer, how about you, Carla?
Yeah, and there was just a request to go back to the image just one more
Yeah.
time for people to see
Yeah.
it. But that is the overall vote. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Let's just take a few more seconds. I am well positioned to actually close this in within the next 2 or 3 minutes, so we'll have enough time for Q&A. Oh, fun fact. Oh my goodness. That's what I was forgetting. Fun fact. So in the original film, we see this scene, we see these purple flowers, and we, visually recognize them as purple. But from the production standpoint, as you can imagine, when it came to like location scouting and location preparation, somebody had to go and plant that field. It was actually, some of y'all may have thought that, myself included, may have thought that it was a field that they just came upon and started frolicking and filming, but not the case. They did plant those, they ordered those seeds, those we're gonna go cosmos seeds for now. They ordered purple, they received purple, they planted purple, but when they filmed it, it didn't look purple on the screen. It wasn't given purple. It wasn't given what it was supposed to have gave, according to the film being called The Color Purple. Like, that's very important. They actually looked pink. So they had to do a little bit of movie magic, if my memory serves me correctly, and make it so that these flowers would look purple on the screen. They might have even dusted something on there, but that's a documentary that is definitely still live on YouTube. So if y'all hungry scholars out there want to go and get some more verification of that, then feel free. So just a couple of Celie's favorite plants, because I will be remiss to be on the Let's Talk African American Gardens series and not talk about some of the plants that Celie liked that you might should give a shot at adding to your gardens, just depending on where you are. So what are some plants that can help you emulate Miss Celie's green thumb? Sunflowers. We talked about that. She definitely had an affinity for sunflowers and grew them very well. I would love to hear, and let's crowdsource this again just for funsies, your tips in the, come on horticulturalists, I want to hear y'all tips for how to get them 12-foot tall sunflowers, because like Celie was pretty young and could barely read and was able to grow these stunning sunflowers that were very tall. And I'm glad that that came up, because it reminds me of something that I think about often, which is the correlation between like literacy versus illiteracy and someone's intellect. But there are people who can grow all manner of things that highly degreed horticulturalists, botanists can't, because they just have that knowledge, and that is a form of literacy. So Miss Celie definitely, she did learn to read, we know that, but she had that literacy of plants and horticulture, and I always like to indicate that she had an ancestral remembrance as well that allowed her to get those sunflowers popping off the way that she did. So y'all don't have to read it to me, but anybody who's trying to figure out how to grow sunflowers, hopefully y'all are crowdsourcing your best tips. I know it has a lot to do with the soil. Get the nutrients in there. You got to be in the right zone. Don't recommend doing that in Connecticut around this time of year. You catch my drift. And also corn. There was that scene that I referred to earlier in the webinar where Celie was putting up a scarecrow in the cornfield, and she was, getting confronted by Sophia, but the fact that she was out there in that field, and if you remember that quote that I just stated, she had just stated earlier in the webinar, she had indicated that her preference was to be out in the field and, you know, chopping wood and stuff like that. So corn is another favorite of hers. I should have put that meme with that little boy in there. That would have been a fun moment, but you know, y'all know what I'm talking about. The corn,
It's
the little
cold.
It's cold. So horticulturalists, gardeners, and plant enthusiasts of the like, feel free to put your best tips in the comments for how to get the best, most abundant corn harvest going. I told you I know words. Sometimes I just got to take a little moment to load them up and find them. So let's see what we got left of. Oops, I'm pushing the wrong button. I'm trying to touch the other laptop. Oh, so while I have your attention, while we're fully engaged, somebody get your phone out. Everybody get your phone out. Y'all need to go and find me on these things. We have said everything that we have come to say for the sake of this webinar. And I know that y'all had a good time because I had a good time. So that means that you want to keep up with me. You want to text me. Now I'm going to have to say it because my bad, the text is not in there. But y'all getting the other information. Take a picture of the screen, whatever you got to do. I'm going to tell y'all the number right now, and somebody can put it in the comments.
We have a lot of advice, so yeah.
I'm sorry.
We have a lot of advice from our audience, so they're helping you out quite a bit.
Somebody already got the number.
Well, Zach's putting up all the links to all your contacts. So I think we're in good shape for that. And
833.
Okay.
Y'all ready?
Yep.
833-819-3926. Did y'all get that in the comments? 833-819-3926. Okay. Y'all bear with me. I'm just trying to get a little screenshot because I'm supposed to be somebody's plant influencer.
We got it.
So I'm just
Samantha, thank you. And Zach, thank you. They both got it and it's on it. Before we run out of time, Carla, I want Carla to ask you the first question. And Carla, okay. I know you know the question.
But I got to come off mute to ask it.
Yes.
Nice shirt, Carla.
Don't you like it? My green?
People actually want to know where that shirt, where they can get that shirt.
Where can people get this?
Yeah. We're just going to have to bring it back. It was a limited run back in 2021. So as long as y'all type in all these things, get signed up for the newsletter, follow us on the socials, especially between the newsletter and the text. And I want y'all to text me Celie, so I know that you found me on here, CELI, y'all know what to do. Then you can stay up to date on when we're going to have them shirts. But yes, great question. Was that the question? I thought you had a deep question.
There's another one. There's a better. Yes, I just remembered that one.
So yeah, so for those that joined us for the last Let's Talk African American Gardens, they know that we are celebrating the 80th anniversary of the publication of the Handbook of the Negro Garden Club of Virginia. And that book is just full of so much knowledge, right? And one of the chapters in there is books you should know, books you should read. And so our first question to you is, what book would you tell us, like what's on your shelf that you keep coming back to, or maybe it's one you've just recently read but you keep thinking about? What's that book we should know? Or two. It's hard to say one, so if you got two.
Well, I actually have a couple right here. I would be remiss if I didn't. I'm tripping today because I don't have my coloring book. The Black in the Garden Coloring Experience is not like a literature book, but it is a book. Okay. It's a coloring book, you know how that works. So that's one. But this book by my good friend of the show, who was on season 1 of Black in the Garden podcast, Camille Bell Hill, just put out Happy Plants, Happy You in September. You also can find, there's a photo of me somewhere in the middle. I don't know if I can find it, but I also was able to put a blurb at the beginning, so I'm kind of in it, you know. So I wasn't trying to
Yeah,
get that. I promise y'all. And
Carly's
Veronica,
helping you out.
Carla came prepared. Soil cousin, I see you. And Veranda Montgomery. Now, if you're looking for somebody that know about plants and all the stuff that they do, and as a researcher through and through, and just a ultimate plants girl, Veranda L. Montgomery, Lessons from Plants. I've had plenty of, friends and associates and things who have put out books. So this is no shade to anybody if I didn't mention your book, because just two. We only have 5 minutes left. So
yeah,
I always feel bad when people ask me about stuff, because I don't like to leave people out. I led with it. I'm inclusive.
But Cola, why those books? I'm not familiar with the first one at all. The second one I am. I have been reading that one. But why those two books?
This book, I mean, this has a lot of meaning to me, because this is someone who I got connected with. She was actually, I was looking at my Insta the other day. This was one of the first plant accounts that I followed. Okay. We have a similar story, and that's how we are connected. And I know a lot of us can relate to this. I would say that by now, Camille is definitely a plantrepreneur and being an author of a book. She started out just loving plants. She started out very obsessed with plants. And so this book not only provides plant care tips, because she's been at it for as many years, much longer than me. I've only been at it for about 7 or 8 years, but Camille she has just evolved from plant enthusiast to plant fluencer, just growing in popularity on Instagram, especially during the pandemic. And then about a year or two, year and a half ago, we were just so excited when we found out that she was getting published for Happy Plants, Happy You, or Happy Plants, Happy You was, the concept was coming to fruition. So just that journey of going from plant enthusiast to like, oh snap, I'm really out here making a career out of this in so many ways. So, and both of these are written by Black women. I tend to lean in that direction. But yeah, support these individuals and buy their books.
Yes, we hope we can get them on our series too.
Definitely.
And
yeah,
there you have it.
The Lessons from Plants is so unique. I mean, for me I also have been digging in the soil since I was teeny bud. And the whole idea of learning everything, learning so much from plants just excites me, just because it's not just the plants, it's the nature. And I don't know if you feel the same way, that when I'm out there, I'm absorbing so much just by being in nature. And the plants are gravy on top of that.
Oh yes. Yeah, I can't go nowhere without trying to figure out where the plants are. I'm at the airport, I'm in the streets. Sometimes I'll be getting little cuttings off the landscape plants. Don't tell nobody. That's the really gardening, by the way. It's free plants, they should be free, but that's a whole nother webinar. Y'all have to bring me back for that.
Well, speaking of, we are. So folks should look out for a return from you next year in our Let's Talk African American Garden series. Right.
And I'll give y'all a hint. Well, first of all, there's a hint that's been in the frame the whole time. And secondly, it's going to be in the future. I'm going to be doing a webinar with y'all in the future. So yes. That's all the hints. I'm trying to be real Beyonce about it. Like,
okay.
Y'all pull up. It's going to be in February. Very much excited about that. And did y'all have any more questions? Because I just had a little closing remark.
Yeah, not more questions, but I want people to know, and Zach has been putting it in the chat box, that this is going to be a unique recording that's going to be up for a short time, this evening until Monday, and then it will be part of our video library in February. So just so people always are asking that, then it's popped up a couple times. So I want them to know that they can revisit, but they're going to have to wait a couple months to revisit you often. and do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, y'all should have been paying attention today. It's really the bottom line. So I want to thank you all for joining us today, my soil cousins uh, in the room. If this is your first time engaging with me, I know it won't be your last. I'm confident about that because you have all my contact information. And one thing that I would be remiss if I did not mention, I know we're at the last minute, so I'm going to wrap it right on up, is, I've been talking. So this email is down here for if y'all have engagements that y'all want me to be talking at, you need to holler at me. I MC and all that other kind of stuff. I'm a whole personality, a whole vibe, and I definitely know about the plants, obviously. But I like to talk and would love to come and talk with you. So if you've enjoyed this webinar, be sure to follow on all those things and get on my contact list. And of course, stay tuned for future episodes of Black in the Garden, where you can continue exploring the intersection of literature, nature, personal growth, Black culture, all of those awesome things. And as we've covered so much today, from exploring the themes in the color purple to drawing inspiration for our own gardens, remember these themes go beyond aesthetics and they carry the weight of resilience, growth, and the profound beauty of personal journeys. So as you tend to your gardens, may the optimism of Celie and the wisdom of Shug Avery guide you. And let your garden become a living testament to the transformative power of nature that has changed the trajectory of my life and led Alice Walker to pen this iconic novel. Y'all did great. If you stuck through the whole time, I really appreciate y'all. And I always close out with wishing you love, light, and soil.
Thank you, Cola, and thank you, Carla. It's been a delight. Someone said in the audience they didn't want it to end. I agree with that, but
Like
the other meetings are popping up. I know they're doing for you too, Carla. So thank you to everyone for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again in January. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.